Hello everyone, my name is Sriram, Technical Marketing Manager in the Enterprise Wireless LAN Business Unit at Motorola Solutions. So today I'm going to talk about Byod, right? We're going to give an insight into our Byod solution, what's built into our Wi-Fi controller, and specifically around our secure access solution. I think everyone in this room understands the importance of Byod, the challenges, right? So I'm not going to go through explaining what Byod is, but let me start with some design considerations for Byod, right? So one of the first and foremost steps when you're thinking of Byod is onboarding, right? So onboarding really means you're getting a device that's totally unmanaged, right? Doesn't have any profile on them. It can only connect to open SSID, and then you want to move them to a secure SSID, right? Get the device registered, push profiles. It could mean pushing certificates, right? Pushing network settings like proxy, and then migrating that device to a secure SSID, right? And there are more features around the onboarding itself, like being able to restrict the number of devices, being able to ensuring that only employees can get their devices in. So I'm going to go dive deep into those aspects later on. So once you have the device in your network, right, the next step is really to differentiate an employee-owned device from a corporate issued device from a vendor device, right? So how do you do that? There are multiple mechanisms to do that. We've had, traditionally we've had in a situation where you had all these devices connect to unique SSIDs, and that formed a basis of differentiation. And then, we had DHCP fingerprinting, and then, one day we realized that, that's not scalable as well, right? And then I'm going to talk about how our secure access solution, right, by onboarding the devices with certificates, can form the basis for your profiling mechanism. Profiling, and then the next is access control, right? So you profile the device, you put them on different buckets, right? You put this device on Byod bucket, corporate issued bucket, right, or a vendor bucket, and then you apply access control, right? Which means what resources can these devices in these buckets can access, right? A popular method is to put them on different SSIDs, but then you got to that's not scalable, right? Then you got to you'll end up creating unique SSIDs for every device, right? So then a VLAN segmentation, right? So you have all the devices on a particular SSID, put them on different VLANs based on your profiling parameters, or even better, you could do per user session firewalls, right? So I'm going to talk about all these later on. Okay, so these three are kind of the fundamental for any Byod solution, right? And then depending on the appetite for of the customer, you talk about advanced solutions like network access control and MDM, right? So network access control is ensures that your device is compliant, ongoing checks, ensure the antivirus software running on the device is latest, right? And then MDM is kind of gives control for the IT over these devices, being able to remote wipe, enforce locks, being able to control the application that run on the mobile devices. Sure. So that's MDM and NAC, right? And with Byod, right, the aspect that gets kind of overlooked is the Wi-Fi controls itself, right? So when you roll out a Byod program, you have to ensure that your Wi-Fi infrastructure is set up or is tuned to support the plethora of devices coming onto the network. So features like load balancing, differentiated costs for different users, right? All these come into play when you roll out a Byod program. So that's more around the Wi-Fi controls. So so this is just setting a context for today's session, and I'm going to be focusing on the bottom three aspects, which is onboarding, profiling, and access control.
Iran.
So sorry.
I just wanted to talk to the bit that you had there about NAC. I mean, to me, the experience that I've had with NAC is it's been a very hard sell with a lot of customers and very difficult to implement because of the variety of different customer networks that are out there. I mean, essentially you're talking to every switch, every device in the place. On the wireless side, relatively easy because it's fairly standardized on 802.1x as an authentication method, but it's really hard to implement with the variety of different ways different switch manufacturers have implemented their support for things. So I think it's a really tough sell to say that is a necessary thing in a BYOD design consideration.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, that's my point. So, so if you look at my, so what I'm saying is, depending on the appetite for the customer, the bottom three kind of becomes pretty important. You can't live without those three. But again, so as you said, when we talk about NAC and MDM, it takes long. The sales cycle itself is long. Get the technology proved with the customer, right? So for someone who wants to set up BYOD in the next 2 months, right? What do you do? So what I'm saying is we can look at the bottom three aspects. That's going to set the baseline for a BYOD program. You can continue to evaluate your NAC and MDM as you roll out your BYOD phases. And then overlay on top of it with your NAC and MDM solution. As I said, yeah, it's there's multiple devices, multiple switches, multiple routers that you need to talk to, pull data from, right? And that's the reason why we, as Motorola Solutions, right, wireless LAN business unit, we have solutions that addresses the bottom three. And then for the NAC and MDM, we rely on our technology partner ecosystem, right? So we have some integration with Forescout. We have Cisco ICE. They integrate with their own wireless LAN solution, right? They have some proprietary mechanism. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to ensure that our wireless works with Cisco ICE as well, right? For example, some of those VSA attributes that get exchanged between the ICE and wireless controller, we can now pass those messages and give the same kind of experience like how you would get in a pure wireless Cisco wireless network. Yeah. So okay. So let me just go ahead. Okay. So coming to onboarding, right? So to me, onboarding is the most important phase in your BYOD program, right? That can really make or break your BYOD program, and that's because it starts the onboarding. The end user experience, right, starts from onboarding, right? And as I said, that is a phase where you set the context of moving a device which is completely unprofiled, completely open, and move them to the secure SSID, right? That to me is number one step, right? And then, as I said, this phase establishes the baseline for a successful BYOD program, right? So from an end user experience perspective, right, how easy is it for end users to come in and enroll their devices? Because at the end of the day, a successful BYOD program is measured by how easy it is for users to come in, how quickly can they get their device registered, and at the same time, right, your IT team is not is not loaded with a lot of support calls to support the BYOD program, right? So it has to be transparent, easy for the end user, and easy to roll out for the IT without much support issues. Okay. So secure access is Motorola's onboarding solution. It does a lot of things. This is just kind of like a quick preview on the set of features that you can do with secure onboarding. First is it's got an onboard PKI infrastructure, so you don't need a complex CA infrastructure like Microsoft CA. It's got an onboard PKI infrastructure. It's pretty easy to manage. Issue certificates, revoke. You can do pretty much everything that you could do. I mean, that you need to roll out a BYOD program.
So if a customer already had a PKI infrastructure in place that they were issuing certificates to the clients and they just wanted to extend that to mobile devices, are you able to handle that as part of the solution?
Yep, cool. Yeah, very good question. So it's a very unique feature with us where, where if you have an existing certificate authority like Microsoft CA, right, what the secure access can do is for all the employees who have an Active Directory credential, we can generate a CSR request, a cert sign request automatically to the Microsoft CA, get a certificate out, and automatically install it on the end device, right? So you can have so you can have a workflow where you have two set of users. One is your employees, and one of the vendors. They don't have an AD, entry, right? So you can issue certificates for your employees from the existing PKI CA. And for the vendors, you can use the onboard PKI infrastructure to issue certificates. Yeah, so it's all pretty flexible. Okay, and then the other thing that secure access really does is, we're saying, we want to push certificates for all, right? I mean, we're not saying do certificates only for the IT-owned assets, right? No. So what we want to do is we want to move everyone to a secure network by pushing certificates. And over the course of my presentation, I'll show you how easy it is to first provision the certificate on the device, as well as managing the whole PKI infrastructure. The secure access solution also does one-time device configuration. So whenever a open device moves from an open SSID to a secure SSID, it's behind firewall, it's behind proxy. So you want to push that. If you don't address those as part of your onboarding solution, your IT can be loaded with calls, right? I mean, they're going to call up and say, hey, you know what, I can't access internet, right? And then you figure out your proxy is not set, right? So pretty much the secure access can push all those configuration as part of onboarding. So helps IT reduce the number of support calls they get from the BYOD program. We can also check for, we can do one-time checks like antivirus if your firewall is turned on, and for iOS Android device we can check if your screen, if the screen lock is turned on, etc. The other feature we have is validate users, right? So as I said, we don't want to restrict BYOD to just employees, right? We have a lot of customers that want their vendors to come in because they need some kind of secure access to the network, right? They want to address vendors as part of the BYOD program, and we can do that with the secure access, right? So we can do AD lookup for employees, or for vendors we have a sponsored voucher mechanism where a sponsor within the organization can issue vouchers or send vouchers to vendors, and they can get themselves on board later. Device registration. So one of the other key requirements in any BYOD program is to restrict the number of devices per employee that can be registered, right? So whenever you open up a BYOD program, the next thing you realize is, I get my son's Android phone, I get my wife's iPad, I enroll all these devices into the network, right? And then management of that is going to become complex, right? So we have ways by which we can restrict the number of devices that can be enrolled per user. And we also have an onboarding portal, which I'll show, where you can manage the devices that you want in the network. Finally, in the newest release of software, we have this feature called vendor management, where a large retailer, for example, right, they have multiple vendors, right, coming to the network, and they don't want to manage vouchers or certificates for the vendor devices, right? So what you could do with the vendor management solution is you can pretty much create voucher lists for every vendor, and then say, what, Mr. Vendor X, this is your set of vouchers, and you can manage by yourself, right? And the good thing is you can also restrict the number of vouchers that you give to a specific vendor, and it's up to them to figure out, which devices get onboarded, and if they exceed the limit, right, which device they need to remove from the network. So that's something new that we have in the newer software, and that feature was pretty. We just rolled out in one of our very large retail accounts. Okay, so as I said, secure access onboarding just sets the stage for a successful BYOD program. And then let's talk about the device types, right? So as I said, we don't want to restrict. So when we start talking about BYOD to a prospective customer, right? I mean, it all starts with the BYOD devices, right? But as you keep talking, the discussion leads into corporate issued non-devices. For example, IT issued iPads for senior executives, and then there are also some customers that would want their contractors, vendors, partners, right, to be onboarded just like how your employee BYOD devices would be, right? So what we're trying, what we're really trying to do is we want to move all the user types to this end of the spectrum, saying you get the best authentication system, which is TLS certificates, but also ensure that they remain in their buckets in terms of the access that they can get in the network, right? Okay, so we have this concept called workflow. So what workflow really does is it's a flexible onboarding solution where you can define different onboarding workflow for different types of users. For example, as I said, you could have an employee that walks in, wants to register his device, and he doesn't. So you can ask him. You can authenticate him using the AD credentials, but at the same time, you'll have a vendor that will walk in. He doesn't have an AD account, and what do you do, right? So we have this workflow concept where you can define the set of steps that every user type has to go through, right? For example, in this case, right, if it's an employee, the first thing we ask him is to authenticate through the Active Directory, and then there are filters to put him on personal device or if it's a corporate asset. And then here's your classic example, right? So if it's a corporate asset, we can issue a certificate from the Microsoft CA, right? So if you have an existing PKI infrastructure, right, that workflow, so if the user went through that workflow, he'll end up with a certificate from Microsoft CA, right? And that could say it's valid for 3 years, right, with a different realm on the certificate. But if it's a personal device, then what we do is we could issue a certificate from Onboard CA. A lot of our customers didn't want to use the license on their Microsoft CA, so they ended up using our Onboard CA PKI for issuing certificates. And then the device ends up getting a BYOD certificate, say for example 1 year, okay? And then they migrate to the secure SSID. For partners, they come in, select you're a partner, right? And then we authenticate using a sponsored voucher, right? So if you don't have a sponsored voucher, you can go beyond step 1, right? And then once you authenticate yourself, you'll be issued a certificate from the Onboard's PKI, and the validity for that certificate could be 6 months, right? And that can be defined, right? It's all it's pretty flexible. You can define the time limit for every certificate, right? And then that certificate will have a realm as at partner, and then they'll migrate to the secure SSID, right? Visitors, we have a bunch of options. We can authenticate guests using Facebook, LinkedIn, okay? And then, if you want certificates for a guest, we can even stamp the certificate with the username of your social account, right? So in this case, it's we're just saying, as I said, there's multiple mechanisms. This is one method where visitor walks in, he gives his phone number, he gets a voucher, validates a voucher, and then he's given access, right? But the good thing about the workflow is these buckets, right? I mean, these boxes, they are interchangeable. right? You can just define them how you want it to be. This is just an example, right? So we have customers that have mixed them up. So it's a pretty flexible system. Okay, so now so this is the end of onboarding process, right? So at the end of this process, you expect every device that got onboarded to have a certificate and migrate to the secure SSID, right? And if you notice this slide here, this really sets the context for profiling a device, okay? The reason I say that is, if you closely look, a device that went through the employee will end up with a different stamp on the certificate. A device that went through partner will end up with a different stamp, right? And we'll use this as the basis of profiling a device. Okay, we have DHCP fingerprinting, we have wireless LAN based mechanisms, but we think this is more robust. It kind of ensures it solves more use cases from a BYOD perspective. Now, so challenges with certificates, right? I mean, starting off, certificates have been around for 15, 20 years, right? But why has it not been popular, right? We have a lot of customers, big enterprises still running on PPM SHA-v2, right? Username password, right? And when we talk to each one of them, they recognize that that's not good, right? I mean, they the employees can walk in, get their device, just key in the username password and get connected, right? That's a security issue, right? So why didn't we see a mass adoption of certificates? Primarily because first, it's very complex to set up a PK infrastructure, right? Mostly the IT team does not want to involve themselves in setting up a complex system. Second, distribution, right? That's always been a problem, right? How do I distribute the certificates to the end devices, right? Is there a seamless way, or should I just get on the phone with everyone and walk them through the steps, right? That's been the other problem. And the third is administration, right? The ongoing administration of the PK infrastructure itself, right? How do you manage the revoked list, right? How do you ensure that when a user is, pulled off the Active Directory, his certificates are revoked, right? So that's the administration. So what Secure Access really does is makes all these steps easy, right? We have a very intuitive, very easy to manage PK infrastructure, which will make all these steps easy for even a small, medium scale IT team. Okay, I'm going to walk through all of that in a couple of moments. Okay, finally, I kind of briefly touched on the slide earlier. So now we've done the onboarding. Now we want to do profiling, right? So as I said, in the early days, we used to profile devices based on wireless LAN. So if you're on wireless LAN Corp, you get, you're put into this bucket. If you're on, a different SSID, you're put on a different bucket. And then came up DHCP fingerprinting, right? It said, if you're an iOS device, you're a BYOD, right? But then that broke when, corporate started issuing iPads to the senior executives, and they want that devices to be part of a corporate network, right? So that broke down. So the profiling mechanism that we are proposing is based on certificates, right? Enrollment. So as I said, as part of the enrollment process, we set the devices in such a way that they're already profiled. I mean, they're ready for getting profiled at a later stage, right? So if you're a corp, you'll end up with a certificate which says at corp.more.com. If you're a BYOD device, you'll end up with this certificate. And then we have our profiling mechanism on our Wing 5 access points and controllers that will, based on the certificate realm, put them on different role or different VLANs. Okay, so this is what it does. So device comes in, he authenticates to the secure network, right? Single SSID, okay, authenticates to the secure network, and then our Wing 5 system looks up the common name or the username, and then says, hey, you know what, you have at byod.more.com, and we're going to put you in role BYOD, right? And that role BYOD can map to a specific VLAN, can map to a specific QS, can map to a specific access control list, right, which is stateful firewall rules. So a pretty robust solution. Solves most of the use cases, and we don't need any external system to get these three pieces going, right? It's all built into our Wing 5 and secure access solution. Okay, so
what are you commonly advocating as your Radius server, right? Because you obviously have to hook into something, right? So it's not self-contained,
right? So, a good question. So we have deployments where there's a backend Cisco ACS or Cisco ICE or Juniper Steel Belt, ForScout AAA, and typically what we do is we create a rule on the Radius server which says, if you get a auth request with certificate that has this stamp on it, right, send him a certain VLAN or send him a role attribute, right, which we honor. And if your infrastructure, right, does not support those profiling mechanisms, right, what you're saying is we don't even have to depend on the external AAA. We can do that profiling. We go to the AAA only for authentication, saying that he's good, and then the profiling or putting him on VLANs or roles or firewalls will happen on the.
So what you're doing is you're profiling, and then based on what you come up with a profile, you're modifying the username that's being sent over to Radius. And then you're telling Radius, hey, when you get a username that I've modified like this, you respond it with some to put them on whatever VLAN you want them to go on.
No, okay. So what we do is when a device comes in, right? So assume that I came in with I'm a Byod device, right? And you're a vendor device, right? So when you onboard, so the onboarding system, right, which is the first step, will ensure that you get a certificate with this profile on it. Okay, your certificate will say you're a vendor. So it will say chris@vendor.more.com, right? And then when I onboard, which is I go through the Byod workflow, right? I will end up with this certificate, right? Which would say sriram@byod.more.com, okay? And then comes.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's important, but that sounds like what everybody else is doing. I'm trying to understand what Motorola is doing that's different or unique, right? What is the Motorola piece to this?
Okay, so the Motorola piece is, we're really saying so this can be done in an existing infrastructure if you have it, right? Like Cisco ICE, they can do it, they can profile it. But if you don't have one, if your backend server is something that does not support profiling based on the common name on the certificates or the username, we can do it on the Wing 5 system itself. So we're not really dependent on external system to do this.
So are you inspecting like your Radius EAP?
Yes.
Inspect to see if the CN name has that in there, and then you're ignoring the Radius response from an authorization point of view. You're saying, I saw that you had this in your EAP request. So the Radius server didn't pass me VLAN or ACL or things of that nature. I'm going to just append that onto your profile.
Right. So if you enable that on Wing 5, so what we do is we look at the Radius username. So typically the common name comes as a Radius username. We pass that, and then we put him on a role, right? And then we send it back to the AAA server, right? He sends authentication, he sends authorization, right? And we might override it if that's enabled on the Wing 5. But if not, then we'll just honor what the AAA server sends from the backend.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you're running something like NPS and it didn't support that,
yep. Yep. So it could be any AAA server, right? I mean, Cisco ICE, ACS, Juniper Steel Belt, ForScout.
Okay.
So can you remind us, where does this functionality come from? Is it a standalone server? It's baked into something?
Okay, so the secure access is a virtual machine that sits on a virtual machine server, most often in your data center, right? So the onboarding piece is all sits on a VM, right? The rest of it, the profiling and the access control, is really built into our access points, the Wing 5 operating system, and we are looking at running the secure access solution, which is a VM, on one of our controllers, because our NX series controllers have the ability to run VMs, right? So they have they're already built for that. So we're in sometime in the next couple of months we'll have that support as well, where you can actually run the secure access VM as part of the Wing 5 NX series controller. So any questions before I get onto the demo? I just want to, what I'll do is I'll try to onboard a couple of devices, show them getting different certificates, different VLANs, right? And then I'll log on to the secure access itself, right? And show the whole PKI, how it's easy to manage. And
I got one question. Does it support change of authorization?
Sorry?
Change of authorization
Yes.
from Radius?
Yes, we do. Yep. Okay, so with that, let me just get started here. Just give me a second. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to try onboarding an iPad, right? So I'm just trying to. I just have a reflector on my laptop, just mirroring my screen, iPad screen on my laptop here. So so the first step is you get your device, right? Okay, so you get your device, right? This is the onboarding portal, right? So all these pages are hosted in our secure access. You click on start. Okay, I'm gonna say, okay, so there are three options, right? You have visitors, employees, and partners, just like how I explained in the workflow, right? So if you remember the workflow, you have three options. You could have more options. You could, this is all completely customizable. So then I'm going to walk through the employee workflow. Okay, I'm just going to click on employee, and then real quick, I'm going to type in my username password. So this is, tied back to my demo AD server, you could say. So Bob, say continue. Okay, so what this does is, okay, so this is the this is the page which shows how many devices you have registered with your username, right? So it says I have 3 devices registered. I have a count of up to 20 because I keep running demos. But again, this allows you to, if you don't want, if you want to remove one of the devices from the network, you just can go say remove here, but you can just leave them on if you want to. So kind of an onboarding portal. So that's a check to restrict the number of devices even before you get onboarded, right? So that's a pretty cool feature. I'll click on continue. Right, I'm going to get him onboarded anyway. Okay, see the profile, right? So this is the profile that gets installed. Okay, and then if you look at the details here, so you see 2 certificates. The top one is the CA cert. This is the client cert. So if I just go look more on the client cert, you can look up the common name here. It says demo.byod.motorolaSolutions.com, right? So it has byod. So it says common name is bob@byod.clouddemo.motorolaSolutions.com. So it has that stamp called byod, which is what we'll use to profile the device later on when it gets to the secure network. Okay, so go back, install now. Okay, done. Okay, so I go search for that SSID secure. Okay, what I really want to do is bring up my. Okay, he's connected. Is he? Oh yeah, because he's on a different network. So he's not going to show here, but real quick, I'm going to log into the controller and show you the role.
And that main screen is customizable?
Yes, it is. So all the text you see, it's all customizable. It's very easy for us to run a demo, right? So it's easy to change the screen load logos of your customers. I do it like, it just takes me 10-15 minutes to build a whole workflow, right? That's it.
And all this is built into Wing 5. So if you've got an AP that runs Wing 5, it's all web pages, everything, profiling's built in?
No, so the onboarding solution, right? The part of the solution that onboards your device, pushes certificate, right? The web pages, right? The workflow definition, the PK infrastructure, that runs on a separate VM, right? Gotcha. Which is actually hosted on a data center, right? So the web server, the web pages are getting served off the web server on the VM. Not of the AP or the controller, but as I said, we are looking at getting this run on our NX series controller, so you don't need an external appliance to host this. Real quick, I know I'm running out of time. So we go look at statistics. Default. Yes, host clients. Okay, so there you go. If I look at this client here, this is my iPhone, iPad, and there are two devices here. One I already enrolled with, with the vendor workflow, so that ended up on vendor role. So this device, which I just onboarded, ended up on a Byod role. And if you look at the SSID, it's the same, mSecure. And you can also see that they are on different VLANs. Okay, so kind of tells you how we profile and then put them on different buckets, right? So different roles, different VLANs, and then different roles could also mean different firewall rules for each of these devices. Okay, so I wanted to go through the vendor workflow, but demo, but I'm just running out of time. So let me quickly log on to the to my cloud server. Okay, this is my cloud server. Still on. Okay, so this is the secure access enrollment server, right? The onboarding VM server. Right now, this is hosted on the cloud. So you go to certificate authority. You can manage CA, so you can actually create your own CA. So this is our certificate authority. And then what you can do is you can actually create templates for that CA, right? So templates is saying, I have a vendor template, I have a visitor template, and I have a Byod template, right? So if you go click on Byod template, this gets filled with, we pick the username as a, from the AD auth, and then fill it up with, stamp it with Byod, right? Similarly, if you go back, vendor template, again, vendor, right? So the workflow is defined here. So if you go to configuration, enrollment, okay, for some reason this screen is kind of get up, but yeah, I think this squished because of the resolution. But again, so the first step one is, you saw the welcome message, right? The step two was, you can create different users. I can easily go about adding, an extra step there or extra, branch out. So for visitors, right, I can do a Facebook or LinkedIn login, and then, get them onto the network. For employees, if you go click on employees here, right? So this different workflow, right? This says from the user from AD, credentials from your Active Directory. So this is a step where you saw those certificates that are specific to your device, right? That you registered, and where you can go and remove them, right? So we said, show them that as well, and then finally move them to mSecure using this template, right? Which means it'll push the certificate onto the device with that template. And for partners, right? So we said step three is prompt the user for a voucher, right? I can easily go and change this, right? I can easily go and say, I don't want to prompt him for a voucher, but maybe even authenticate to a local server, right? Which could be another AD, right? So these are the sort of steps that we have, and as I said, it's pretty flexible. You can interchange them, and it's very intuitive. For me, it just takes 15 minutes to set up a whole workflow, right? The other cool feature we have, the last thing is when we deployed our BBOD solution, one of our customers, right? Initially, they set the certificates to expire at 6 months, and then what happened was at the end of 6 months, nobody knew they were expiring, right? And then there's a whole bunch of people just calling IT and saying, my device is not connecting to the network, right? Because your certificate is expired. So we have a mechanism by which we can send notifications to the users like a week or 15 days before the certificate expire. So that way, every user is notified, beforehand that the certificate expires, and then they can go and go to we can send a link as part of the email where they can go onboard their device again and get a new pair of certificates. So I think I'm actually taking 10 more minutes from the next session, so I'm pretty much done with my demo and presentation. So if you have any questions, I can take them now.
Scalability, pricing model.
So yeah, we'll probably take that offline, but we have two pricing models. One is it's based on the number of certificates that gets issued. There's a base license pack for the VM, but then it scales up based on the number of certificates. If you're doing secure access for guests, you really can't count the guests, right? Because they're going to be coming in a lot. So we have a model where we price based on the number of APs that that serve that guest network. All I can say is, it's pretty competitive compared to competing solution. It's kind of grown over the last couple of months in terms of feature sets, especially after a couple of our initial BBOD deployments, right? Features like notification before the certificate expiry, vendor management, they all came up as we started deploying in some of our large retail accounts. So I'm sure you're going to see a lot more features coming in through this. So
is that pricing on the number of certificates issued? That's the number of valid certificates, I assume.
Number of valid.
Or is revoked.
Yeah, if you expire a certificate, that license comes back to the pool. Yeah, number of certificates that are valid. Yeah, you have a revocation list and. So
question, can you, for the certificates, I saw you guys were filtering off of just the CN name. Can you filter off of other attributes in the certificate, or is it just the CN name?
Okay, so the backend AAA can, right? We've used Foscloud and Cisco Eyes to do more and look at more information from the certificate field. The Wing 5 can right now look only at the Radius username, which is fed in by the common name. So yep, it's just a common name on the Wing 5 control X point, but if you're relying on external AAA, it can be more fields. Yeah, so this does the issue certificates, and certificates got issue, revoked. All right, so it has a revocation date here, and you can actually revoke the certificates right from here if you want to get a device off the network. So pretty much everything that you really want to do, but we try to make it more intuitive. Our aim is to push certificates for all devices, not just for the elite group of corporate users, but everyone gets a certificate and a solution that's easy to manage.